Thanks for joining us for Season 3 of the Stories Unveiled podcast. Stories Unveiled exists to create a platform for people to share hope through personal stories about what Jesus has done in their life. Each episode highlights a different guest just like you and me, wading through this life that can get so messy. I hope this conversation proves helpful and encourages you to go live unveiled. Today, I have Tamala Anderson not even in the studio with me, actually. She's in North Dakota. And so I am so excited to have a conversation today with her about hope. Tamala is an author, speaker, and she is the founder of Pursuing Christ Ministries. In addition to helping and encouraging others through this faith journey as a coach, she also helps others as an oncology nurse practitioner. Tamala has weathered many of her own trials, including divorce, alcohol abuse within her family, and significant health issues. I am so happy to have you here with me today. Tamala, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate just being able to share my story and encourage people.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in and chat. When we first met, I was just so captivated by your story and by your faithfulness, and your hope really is, even your bio says you just like to offer hope to people. And that's so much what this podcast is about. And what I'm about is hope through stories, through real stories from real people. So thank you. Okay, you're an author, right?
I am.
Okay, tell me about what it was that caused you to write your first book.
It's a very interesting story because I never really set out to write a book. Years ago, after my world kind of fell apart, I just dove into the Lord and I couldn't get enough of him. And what I found is that as I started encouraging others and pouring out to others, it was filling my cup. And so over time, I started writing devotions, and I would send them out it was friends initially, and then it was friends of friends and people in my Bible study. And pretty soon it was a pretty good group. And then one day somebody said, "You need to publish that." And I thought, publish a book? I'm a nurse. This doesn't even make sense. So I kind of pondered it. I kind of dabbled in it a little bit. And then I put it on and after I put it on the shelf for a while, one day one of my friends invited me to a conference. It was on the other part of the state, so it was about 300 miles away. I actually had concert tickets that weekend, but felt that I needed Jesus more than I needed a conference, or more than I needed a concert. So I went to this conference. The second day, the first speaker gets up and talks about how she has just started a business for new writers. And my friend nearly pushed me off the chair. And it was the note that I needed to start publishing the devotions that I've written. So in May of 2023, we released our first book in the devotion series. And then there's going to be 2 more that are coming.
That's awesome. So you released a devotional. Is it like a yearly, like a year long? Is it a weekly? Like what type of devotional is it?
It's just a 30-day devotional. And the next one will be 90 days. And the following one is going to be 325. It's starting the journey, continuing the journey, and the journey.
Okay. That's awesome. So the first one's out. What is it called?
It's starting the journey.
Oh, that's called Starting the Journey. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next one, when is that out?
So that one got put on the back burner because God told me I had to write the 4th book that he gave me. So July of 2024 is where we're set to release my other book that put my devotions on hold. And that one is called Overcoming When It Hurts. And it's really a story about looking at the hurt and pain in our lives, as well as looking at the hurt and pain of people in the Bible and how have they responded and what can we learn from their experiences and grow from them.
Okay. And what caused you to to write that? What, like the Lord told you write a fourth book, but not clearly in chronological order, because this is technically your second.
Exactly. I think because of my work and ministry work that I do, I just see so many people that are broken and hurting and in pain. We seem to think we go into this world and there's not going to be hurt and pain, and then we're surprised when our world falls apart. And yet the reality is this world's going to hurt and there's going to be pain in it, because if there wasn't, we'd be in heaven. God wouldn't have given us a whole instruction book and book of encouragement if it wasn't going to be a hard world. And I just really felt that God was telling me that we need to really help people in their hurt and pain and the journey that they're on.
That's great. Hope, giving them hope.
Exactly.
So tell me about your ministry. Are you talking about Pursuing Christ Ministries, or are you talking about your ministry as an oncology nurse, or all of it?
Well, I started as a nurse a lot of years ago. I'd give away my age if I told you how many years. And that's kind of been my ministry up until my world fell apart about 12 years ago. And now I have started ministry work between speaking and writing, and just really being available, coaching people, trying to help people in their hurt and pain, more on the Christian side, while I still do my ministry in my professional life.
Okay. So talk to me about what Pursuing Christ Ministries is. You're the founder of that.
So we are in our infancy yet, but our goal is really to provide more and more opportunities for people to have outlets, for them to be able to find the Lord, as well as to connect with a group of people that are there to pray for them, encourage them, and walk with them through their journey.
Okay, that's awesome. So going back to you being an oncology nurse practitioner, that's right? Did I get that right?
Correct.
Okay. That's probably really heavy, right?
You know, it is. However, if I stood on the outside and looked at what people do, I would be like, why would you ever want to do that? But God equips us in what he calls us to do, and it's different for everybody, and this is just what he's equipped me to call. And one of my favorite things is entering people's lives when they're hurt and pain and broken, and oncology, we find that every day.
That's so beautiful. Do you get an opportunity to share with people about your faith and about Jesus?
So the organization I work with is not a faith-based organization entirely. There is some of it. So for me, it's always a little bit of what I call a delicate dance. So sometimes you throw a little tidbit in there about God and you see how people respond. And if they open the door, I'm coming straight through.
That's great. No, I understand. It's a delicate dance, and working for a hospital or whatever organization. Yeah, I understand that. But even if you never mention God, we do see that in the Bible too, in the book of Esther. Even when God is not mentioned, he's still working. And so even when we don't mention him, we can still be Jesus to people. We can still offer that hope in other ways. So
exactly. It's our walk and our actions that should look like Jesus and attract them to what we have.
So talk to me about a time in your life when you experienced hopelessness.
So that's when I really started my God journey about 12 years ago. I grew up in the church. I grew up in a rural town in North Dakota, small little town. We were about as traditional as they come. I grew up on the farm. I was one of four daughters. We could drive a tractor. We could round up a herd of cattle. We could do everything. And my life was just exactly what it was supposed to do. I graduated high school. I went to college. In college, I met my husband. And shortly after college, we got married, started our family. We had 2 boys and then a surprise little girl. And life was good. It was the day-to-day challenges that many of us face. But overall, it was good. And then we decided years later that we were going to do some foster care. We felt like we were just really good at this parenting thing, and we partnered really well. So we started doing foster care. And then we decided that I would go back to grad school and get my nurse practitioner degree. So I was in my last semester of grad school, and we had accepted a foster care placement on Friday that we were going to get on Monday. We actually had the boy for respite before, and we were really excited because he was just a cute little kid. And Saturday morning was just crazy at our house, raising kids. My daughter had dance rehearsal for competition. My boys had a scouting activity, and so we split our different directions. Me and the kids got home before my husband did, and I was in a hurry to get homework done, and the kids wanted to go do stuff with friends, so they left, and my husband came home, and like any married couple, he was kind of upset with me that I let them go do stuff before they had their chores done, and we got into just a little marital squabble, and he said, I don't want to be married anymore, and I'm leaving, and that was it. Never before in almost 20 years of marriage had he said anything about being unhappy. Had he ever mentioned wanting to be divorced or needing a break? We rarely fought. As a matter of fact, at one point he even said, you're my best friend. This just doesn't make a marriage. And he left. And I became a single mom, finishing grad school with a tremendous amount of debt, and it took me to a place I had never been before. And everybody goes through their thing that's really hard in life. That was mine, and I didn't know how I was going to get through. I knew the Lord, but I never knew the Lord where I had to totally depend on Him for the next step in my life, whether it be from hour to hour, day to day, sometimes even minute to minute. But it took me to a place of really digging to find new hope.
Wow. So you just overnight just became, and then you had a foster kid coming?
So I told him he was going to talk to social services because I'm like, I didn't create this. No, we ended up, that was the end of foster care for us. And as a matter of fact, he pretty much became estranged in the kids' lives as well. He was a really, really good closet alcoholic and could not keep his secret anymore.
Wow. I'm so sorry. You said that was 12 years ago.
Yes, it was.
So tell me what it looked like in that situation, because at that point, you have to choose to have hope. You said you knew the Lord, but wasn't really like leaning into Him. And maybe that walk was a little strained, your faith walk. What did the next 12 years kind of look like? I mean, from then to now, like, how did you get to where you are after that?
So I think one of the big things that I have to say initially happened was I decided to leave the church that I was at. I just was not really feeling like I was getting fed, and I needed the Lord really bad. And there was a nurse that I used to work with that was just on fire for the Lord, and she went to this other church. So I'm like, if she's like that, that's where I need to go to church. And so I started going to church there, and it was about the third time that I had went to church there. And the pastor knew my name. They didn't know anything else about me. That was the extent of what they knew. And I went there that night. I walked in and he was like, well, hi, Tamala, how are you? And I was surprised that he remembered my name. And then there was this guest pastor. He was this big, robust guy. And I had been putting the pieces together of everything that had happened because it wasn't right away that I figured out how bad my husband's alcoholism was. There was some extracurricular activity going on there also. And so I had been putting those pieces together. And I was just really broken. And this fire and brimstone preacher gets up and he preaches this message about God always wins. Like there is evil in this world, but God always wins. And I was just like, oh, that is such a message I needed to hear. And he gets done speaking. And he gives the microphone over to the regular pastor. And I had been sitting there thinking, you know, when this is over, I think I'm going to stay afterwards and see if they'll pray for me. And so afterwards, after he gives this to the regular pastor, and it's still during the service, again, the pastor doesn't know anything about my name. He walks over to me and he said, Tamala, I don't know what's going on in your life, but I wanted to tell you God has laid you on my heart and I feel like you need prayer. And I was like, whoa. God,
you're like, I was going to go get prayer.
God heard me. God has been seeing me when I have been crying and I've been hurting and I've been pain. He saw all of that and he's telling me he sees that. So the next several years that followed were very tough. A year after the divorce, my daughter had open heart surgery, and then she had some complications with that. A couple years after that, I had to have surgery, and it limited my ability to be able to work for several weeks. We were still living paycheck to paycheck, so it was very challenging. A couple years after that, my one son took some detours in life and went down some bad paths. And so it's been a long 12 years. I can tell you that God has come full circle. And my kids are all doing well. My daughter, who had the open heart surgery about a year and a half ago, had a baby, and her heart did great through it. My son that took some bad turns, he is graduating in 2 weeks with an engineering degree. And I have flourished in my profession, and I have found a way to relate to people and to understand their hurt and pain.
Yeah. Yeah. To be able to use your story or what, God has taken you through.
Absolutely.
And to look back and say, but look at all these things and I can still see hope. I can still show you, my faith walk and what God's done.
Definitely. I think there's one thing to have sympathy on people, but there's a whole other thing to have empathy and to truly feel what that deep hurt and that deep pain feels like. And once you've walked through that and you're on the other side, you want to give hope to anybody else that they too can walk through it and they can find what God has to offer.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue into kind of my next question. What would you tell listeners who are struggling to find hope or even just choose hope to make it a conscious decision in whatever life situation they find themselves in?
So I think one of the things that happens when you get into those difficult things is the pain is so overwhelming that that's what your eyes almost become fixed on. And I remember after my husband left and I figured out how much he had been drinking, I had been talking with a counselor, and he said something to me that was so simple and yet so profound. And he said, right now you feel like this is never going to end, but it will. And that's the thing. God doesn't leave us where we're at. He comes to our rescue. If you look at Scripture, there are people that have hurt all over in Scripture, from people like Hannah to Joseph to Job to Paul. There's been tons of struggling and pain in the Bible, but God always comes through. When you focus your eyes on Him and you stay faithful and you keep your hope in Him, you will be rescued.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, can you tell our listeners where people can find your devotional that is out and your book coming out July of 2024?
Absolutely. It's available on Amazon under my pen name, Tamala May. There is also a link at our website, pursuingchristministries.org. There is also a spot there that you can go to on the website if you're needing to connect with somebody, if you're needing prayer, if you're needing somebody to encourage you and walk with you through your hurt and pain. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. We can have all of those linked to those are in the show notes. So anybody that's listening can go to those notes and click on those, find the book, find your ministry, and find a way to connect with you. So thank you so much for just sharing a small piece of your story and what you do and giving us some encouragement and offering us some hope today. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. You have a great day.
As well.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation on the Stories Unveiled podcast. We would love it if you would leave us a rating or review. If you would like to learn more about Stories Unveiled and our events, go to storiesunveiledconference.com or follow us on Facebook or Instagram at storiesunveiled_. The Stories Unveiled podcast is created in partnership with KTSY and Barefoot Media Ministries. For more encouragement and other podcasts, visit ktsy.org. Have an incredible day and go live unveiled.